Welcome to the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast. Tune in every Thursday as we share inspirational stories from the world's greatest creators, entrepreneurs, and go-getters about how they've turned life's lemons into lemonade. And now, here's this week's host, the CEO of Lemonade Stand, Derek Miner.
Welcome to the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast. I'm Derek Miner, and I'm here with an incredible human, one of my favorite people, Krista Andersen. Krista, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and be on our podcast.
Oh, I'm so grateful, Derek.
Yeah. Well, I want to start really quickly. I think it's really fun just to provide a little bit of context on how we met.
Yes.
You're obviously doing so many amazing things, and I learned about you on social media, but none greater than Paul Shin introducing the two of us.
Legend.
At the Silicon Slope Summit.
Yes.
And from my perspective, here's how it went. And I want to hear your perspective too. So Paul says, hey, let's go grab lunch. I said, oh, that's awesome. So we go downstairs and just in classic Paul fashion, starts bringing tables together, right? And bringing people together. And I sit right next to Krista and I'm like, how are you? And we had an incredible conversation. I'm so grateful to have made that connection, right? Because there's people that you meet, and you're like, yes, I want to stay in touch. And then there's people you meet and you're like, yes, let's do. And so I sure appreciate you taking time here. But we can talk about that experience too, but I really want to just hear a little bit more about you and your story, your journey.
Yeah.
Such an incredible person, cancer survivor. And so just again, appreciate your time being on here.
Thank you. Well, let me give you my take on Paul.
Yeah.
I was meeting with a lady, having a conversation. Paul came over to us and said, hey, let's go downstairs and have lunch. Takes this gal and I downstairs and then starts pulling the tables together, seats us together. But also Paul would go around that day gathering people who were sitting alone and bringing them to our table.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
That's so awesome. I'll never forget that. I remember looking around this table. I'm like, all these great people we're meeting. Where's Paul? And he's over there finding one other person sitting at the table eating lunch together. And that is Paul. So selfless, just so incredible. And I'll never forget in our short interaction, learning about your journey and some of the things that you've overcome and telling me about your incredible business that you're working on. So that's really what I want to talk about and hear from you so that you can share with those who are listening, who are facing what seems to be insurmountable trials and challenges in their life. And perhaps one of my favorites that you shared is you said that your experience with cancer was the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's easy to identify things as either best or worst, but not the same, not correlated. Having cancer was hard, but having cancer was wonderful. Not from a physical standpoint. That part was really hard. There is something really challenging about all of a sudden seeing mortality with a timeline to it, potentially a timeline, or your paradigm of going through the day-to-day suddenly shifting into what are my priorities and what is important and what is not. And it was immediate. The day I got my cancer diagnosis, there was an immediate shift in what matters and what doesn't. And also a mourning that took place of these things that did matter to me, I need to let go of because they're not as important as other things. So being the best and worst, it pointed out a lot of things to me, but it was also very, very challenging. It was good for my family, I think. They may have a different take on that, but it was good for me to see my family have to be challenged too, and to get outside of themselves in being more helpful, being more aware, recognizing that their flow of day-to-day life was going to change and it will continue to change throughout their lives. So while the physical and emotional, psychological aspects of cancer are difficult, the people you meet, the resilience you gain, the grit, the expansion of abilities, and really beginning to see what can I do? Wow, I can do way more than I thought I can do. That makes it one of the best things that happens.
Wow. Incredible. And there's so much that you shared there that's so interesting, right? Not only the impact on you, but on your family.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about how did you prioritize what was important and what wasn't?
Time is a non-renewable resource, and really our only non-renewable resource. You can't get more of it ever. So time became very critical. I had to look at what are the things I want to put my time into and what are the things I don't. What matters as far as time, what's going to have the longest impact, what is going to, if in the event I were to die, what's going to leave a legacy, what after would my family say, I'm so glad that mom did this instead of this. Those are those evaluations on time. I had one experience after I finished treatment where I was mistakenly given a second cancer diagnosis. And that was 6 weeks after I had finished all of my treatment. And a doctor misread a report and they told me that I had cancer again. And that was a whole other shift on time, because at that time I was finishing my doctoral dissertation, and in an instant, I didn't care about it. Suddenly it was, for those 3 days that I believed I had cancer again, it doesn't matter if I finish that. Like, my time is limited. I am going to cancel everything that doesn't involve building memories with my family. When I had that mistaken diagnosis, I went to a meditation class that I did on Zoom from home. So I'm laying on my bedroom floor, and the person facilitating is saying, you are going to probably get uncomfortable because you're laying in the same position for a long time. But if you're in pain, remind yourself that you're safe in your body. That entire meditation for an hour, I kept saying that. I am safe in my body. I am safe in my body, over and over and over. That became a mantra from that day up until 3 days later, when I learned that I didn't have cancer again. But since then, that runs through my mind, because in this moment, no matter what is happening, no matter what's going on in the world, in this moment, I am safe in my body. I'm safe right now. And that's how I deal with a lot of hard things, is by reminding myself of that. And one day I won't be. One day I won't be safe in my body, whether that is for disease or age or trauma or whatever. One day I won't be. And then I still am, I am. And so I am safe in my body. That's a mantra. My favorite book that I read over and over is called Mistakes Were Made, But Not By Me. And that book is about cognitive dissonance and about perception, and that we can project that if somebody does something, it's because of their character, but if we do it, it's because of our circumstance. So it's the ultimate way that we go about justifying our behavior. And it points out that we're simply justifying our behavior. And the example that mostly stands out to me is kind of the driving thing. If I am driving and somebody cuts me off and I say that person is a jerk, I'm labeling their character. But if I cut somebody off, it's because of my circumstances. I was late. I'm in a hurry. I didn't realize I was that close to you. It's my circumstances. It's not me. Well, is it my character or is it my circumstance? And I have to give that same grace to everybody else. So it's circumstance, not character. So another book I love was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. If you ever think that you can't do something, read that book. That is like defying humanity and capabilities with what David Goggins has overcome and become. And then another one I love is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And that one, I think for women in particular, helps women be kind to themselves and realize that they have a lot of power and influence and unlimited abilities. So those are my three.
Yeah. And incredible to think about. You're right in your dissertation. So obviously you find out and then you see that through.
Right.
Tell us what that was like.
Ooh, so I was given my initial cancer diagnosis the week after I finished all of my coursework for my doctorate. So I was just starting my dissertation when I got that. I had a philosophy that time passes no matter what. So what I do with that time has value. And all my life, I had wanted to get a doctorate of some kind. It was important to me. I love to learn. I love the expansion of my mind that happens through learning. So it was important for me to do that. I was really sad when that was, in fact, when I got the cancer diagnosis, that was one of the things I was really sad about, was like, I might not finish this. And this was really hard. And this has been years and years in the making. This was super hard. It was a goal. Maybe I won't finish. So I was really determined to finish it. And I used writing and research during that initial year of treatment as a way to keep my mind sharp, because chemotherapy has a way of turning your brain to mush. And so that was one of the things I allocated in my time. It was time with my family, time with learning, time with keeping my mind sharp, because it also acted a little bit as a distraction, and then accomplishing a goal and really telling myself, I can do hard things. I can do this and that simultaneously. Yeah. But it kept me smart during that. I didn't feel as forgetful as a lot of my cancer peers because I was constantly engaged in learning.
That's awesome. What a great life lesson that is, right? And so inspiring. I remember specifically, and I love all the good that you shared through that experience, right? Your perspective and your attitude and how you showed up every time.
Every time.
In a different costume. Yes. Tell us about that.
Ooh, the costumes were fun. I did cancer during COVID. Wow. So cancer was a solo experience for everybody in any of the cancer suites. You couldn't have a support person with you. You were there alone. And it was a room full of cancer patients getting chemotherapy alone. At the beginning of the type of treatment I would get, they'd give you a shot of Benadryl, which most people would fall asleep. For whatever reason, it didn't make me fall asleep. It made me kind of wired. So I would wander around, take my IV pole, and I would wander around and try to meet people who were awake and get to know them. And who are you outside of this room? Because in this room, you're a cancer patient, but who are you outside of this room? So after the first treatment, I started thinking, how can I be more cheerful in there, not only for myself, but for this really dreary experience that people are going through? And I had this Wonder Woman onesie pajama set and decided to wear that. And that kicked it off. It was pajamas. Yeah. That kicked that off. And then the reaction that I got, not only from my oncologist, but all these patients who were like, this is so fun, became, what am I going to do next time? So another distraction for myself of, rather than thinking about how hard it was to be there, knowing that when you leave there, how sick you're going to be and what the next week is going to look like, I would be thinking about, what am I going to wear? How am I going, I'm bald. Who else is bald? What are other characters that are bald? And I could wear any wig because I didn't have to stuff any hair under it. So I would scroll costumes during chemo. I would find out what I was going to wear next time and try to get creative. I had a lot of fun with it. And every time I would come, people would say, I was wondering what you were going to be this time. And it was fun, not just for me, but it was fun for them. And it was silly. And I look back on it now and I think that was really a silly thing to be doing. But I don't know, the people that I run into when I go every quarter to the oncology unit for checks and some different infusions, people do ask, are you going to start wearing costumes again? I don't know. I haven't done it yet, but maybe I should.
That's so awesome. You think about perhaps the hope.
Yeah.
That it gave other people the opportunity to look forward to something as well. as you think about your decision to do that, what did that look like? It was like, I'm just going to try this and see,
Yeah,
which I loved. Secondarily, the fact that I can't imagine how difficult that is to feel so isolated during that time, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, to get outside of yourself and say, I want to really learn more about you. Were there some stories or some people that you met that had a significant impact on you?
For sure. Cancer is a non-discriminatory disease. So there isn't anybody it cannot affect. I met some of my most cherished relationships come from that experience. My oncologist, who I adore and think so highly of, my surgeon, who's become one of my best friends, patients who have passed away, who became so dear to me. I met people who have invented things that we use every day. People who worked in law enforcement, who had incredible stories, professors and teachers, parents who are just trying to do their best, but great friends to be able to sit down with somebody and start with, so how long have you been coming here? And find out how long have they been in treatment? What's it been like for you? What do you do outside of this space? Especially for the people who get chemotherapies that cause you to lose your hair, you're automatically identified as a cancer patient because there's this visual representation. But not all chemotherapies cause hair loss. So some people, you wouldn't know that they had cancer just by looking at them. To be able to find out from those particularly who looked like cancer patients, that suddenly that's all you become to the outside world. Now, who are you? Who are you? Who are you aside from the I am a cancer patient, I am a parent, I am a insert all these labels? Like, who are you? What do you love? What do you believe in? What do you like to do? What lights you up?
Yeah.
What about this has been good or hard, or what do you dream about?
Yeah.
But I got to know people, and that was one of the most beautiful aspects. When I say it was the worst and best thing, one of the best things was all these people. I never would have met these people without that experience.
No,
I would do it again just to know those people.
That's incredible. And we both have a mutual hero.
Yes.
Nicole Tanner.
Yes, we do.
And so inspired by the work that she's done as well. And I know that you've been in close contact with her as well. How has that helped you and inspired you? She inspires all of us.
I can't say enough good about Nicole and what she has done. So she is a fellow breast cancer survivor. And Nicole does the Save the Cups campaign through her company Swig. And I've been privileged to meet several women who have been recipients of the funds from Save the Cups. One of the challenges with any type of disease is the financial aspect. People often think that the physical is going to be one of the worst parts of it, but the financial is tough because you have very unexpected costs that fall outside of all of your typical insurance costs. But then there's missed work. There's therapies that aren't covered. It's endless. So not only as a cancer patient are you thinking about how am I going to survive this, but also how am I going to provide? How am I going to maintain a lifestyle and take care of my family? And Save the Cups addresses that. They put money directly into the hands of the people who are nominated or nominate themselves for those funds. And I think this year they raised about $300,000 for that. And just this weekend, I met a lady who was a recipient of some of that money. And she was able to tell me her story and what that meant to her. So it makes a real impact. I think there are great charities out there for all sorts of things, but something that makes like a real tangible impact, it's outstanding.
It's incredible.
I love her.
Me too. She's remarkable.
Yes.
And an incredible entrepreneur as well. It's been so fun. We had the opportunity to talk to her on this podcast right prior to their massive expansion.
Yeah.
And just inspired to see what she's doing to lead. And that's what I want to ask you. Tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
And starting FIKSAL.
Yes.
And what it is.
Okay. Previous to FIKSAL, and even now, I mediate. And as a mediator, acting as the neutral party between people who have some type of conflict, people often bring an email, like a bunch of emails or even the texts that they've exchanged with somebody. And I would read them and think, wow, this was put in writing and this made the conflict worse. Why would you put this in writing? Or why do you feel like it's okay to say certain things to somebody that are so hurtful? So I got thinking, what is out there that could help somebody understand the impact of language? And the metaphor I see it as is the words that we use are taking a rock and throwing it into a still body of water. And you see the splash, which is that initial reaction. But what you don't see are the ripples that continue and continue outside of your view. FIKSAL is designed to help prevent negative ripples or to help somebody predict what the ripples could be in written communication. So we've created a mobile app and a SaaS tool that looks at all the words being written in real time and provides feedback. It will tell you if what you're writing is biased or an unconscious bias, if it is insensitive, if it's aggressive, and everything in between, all the way to anything being egregious or hateful, which we will block. And that works in every written content platform. While that is a great tool that functions for risk or legal, HR, compliance, DEI training, because it gives education throughout, the altruistic point of that is helping people know that words have real meaning, that words have a real impact. And in this digital era now where people prefer to send a text over making a phone call, I think we're becoming disconnected. We're becoming disconnected from the feelings of others, from empathy, from understanding, and from listening. And I'm trying through technology to reestablish that connection, to help people know that, that phrase or that word or that thing that I thought was okay might actually be a stereotype or perpetuating something against a population of people that's hurtful to them.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't say it either. So I'm trying to bring the humanity back into writing through technology.
I love that. And the idea of just pausing for a minute before you say something.
Yes.
Right? Because our words do have such an impact.
They do.
I'm curious, what are some of your favorite words?
Ooh, that words like that people shouldn't be writing?
Or words that inspire you?
Oh, words that inspire me. Connection, community, empathy. I think about connection a lot.
I was just going to go back to that.
Yeah, I think about connection a lot because connection is core to who we are as people, and that through connection, we learn, we develop, we become kind. I look at all the things that are happening in the world today, all of the unrest, the war, the hate, the miscommunications. And what's missing is connection in all of those, that we are not connected at the very base level of being humans. Mm-hmm. Instead, we're fighting over ideals and often things we don't even understand that we're fighting about or why we're fighting about them, but we're missing the connection.
Right. And isn't that so interesting too, as we think about how really connected we are in this world. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have a connection, like immediately with the internet or whatever it may be, we really get frustrated.
Yes.
And it's interesting just to think about how people go from one place to another. We leave and we're listening to something. We're relatively isolated. Technology provides so many amazing things for us. but yet this connection that we have. What are some ways that you've seen that have worked well in developing and continuing this humanity around connection? I love that idea.
I think a willingness to speak to people face to face. And that actually is one of my greatest concerns with the way that people connect now, is there's not as much face-to-face connection. And I think face-to-face connection will become a lost art if we don't try to rekindle that. I think asking questions beyond what do you do for work creates connection. I love being asked, like, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? What's interesting to you? Where's your favorite place you visited? I went to a seminar by Deepak Chopra once, and he did this exercise where he had us all in our mind say our labels. I am a mom, this, all these things, all these labels. Then he said, okay, drop the labels. And, I am your first and last name. And then I am your first name. And then just I am. That all of us we all exist. And just down to the I am part. That I don't have to have all the labels to be worthy of love and connection and grace and friendship and hope. I don't have to have those labels. Just because I am, I get to have all of those things. And that to me is that connection, that everybody, regardless of belief system or race or gender or age or anything else, is their own I am. And therefore, deserving of all the love and grace and empathy and connection of anybody else.
Right. And does it seem like that when you have that reassurance, you're able then to help point others
Absolutely.
to discover that themselves?
Yeah. And to be centered in, I'm okay where I'm at. That I don't have to do more to be okay and to be safe. And safety is another piece that's become a real driving factor for me as I think about what kind of culture do I want to create? What kind of, in FIKSAL, what does that culture look like? And what are the pillars that is built on? And I think about humanity, dignity, equity, respect, all of these things that we all are deserving of no matter what. That safety, emotional safety, to be able to share an idea or an opinion or even a grievance without fear of retribution, without fear of being minimized or degraded, but that there is true equality in who we all are, regardless of position or education or status.
Yeah. I love that when you talk about specifically in a workplace culture. What have you seen that highly successful companies are doing really well from a culture perspective to incorporate those ideas?
Buy-in, having people who really believe in the mission of the company, who have a culture of equality that isn't fractioned off. Although ERGs or those employee groups have a purpose, they are also potential issues with creating cliques and perpetuating stereotypes. I think great companies are building a community. They're building a community where the most entry-level employee is able to have access to the most senior level person. And again, no fear of retribution. That if I have a grievance, that I can talk about it in an open, honest, and connected way, and that it will be addressed. Places where people feel seen and heard are doing well.
Yeah.
And those places where there are hierarchies and isolation, they're not. I believe that when we have true equality and people feel free to share their opinions, then our perspectives can shift, because we need diverse positions and opinions and perspectives for growth. And I think cultures where people are allowed to challenge the norm, those are the companies that grow.
Yeah. And it's really interesting as you think about a mission, right? And then core values, most importantly, that help. I think about it as the guardrails right, for what you're trying to accomplish, found within those boundaries. But I think that idea of psychological safety and the ability to approach anyone in the company with ideas. In fact, I can think of some of the best ideas that we have here and that I've seen is when you feel not only that you'll be heard, but that your opinion and your thought will be valued, right, and recognized that way. So this idea of collaboration and communication that you talked about, and ultimately it is wrapped up in this idea of safety, which I think is so interesting.
Well, collaboration over competition, because to express a different point of view doesn't need to be a negative. All technological and scientific advancements have come because somebody challenged something. Because somebody disagreed and said, I think there's a better way. So we have to be open to that, and we have to create a safe container for that to be shared. If you look at, like in the healthcare system, if a nurse sees something happening that is not safe, if they don't feel safe reporting somebody who has more power than they do, people could die. If one of my nurses in the oncology unit sees a medication maybe that I'm getting that I shouldn't be getting, they need to be able to report that without fear of being told to stay in their lane. And I see that in every part of every organization and every family, to be able to have those conversations. But it has to be a safe space to do that, or people will they'll shut down and then they'll leave. Yeah,
exactly right. And that idea of accessibility to anyone who you may be working with, so that there isn't that fear of intimidation. Right. And that ideas and that idea of collaboration are welcomed. That's awesome. Are there companies that you see that are doing a really good job?
Yeah. One of the top rated companies for leadership is actually LinkedIn, for people having opportunity to grow within the company, but also there being compassion for people who are not equipped to do the job that they're in, to give them opportunities to either get better training or have the right tools, or just not have that role at all. Because sometimes the compassionate or the right thing is to help direct somebody into something that's a better fit for them and for the organization. And LinkedIn has done actually a really great job of that. Another who I have admired is Bob Iger of Disney. And I've admired his stance on zero tolerance for racism or discrimination within the organization. And an example of that was him canceling the Roseanne Barr show when a negative tweet was put out by Roseanne Barr, even though it was a top-rated show at that time. It was zero tolerance. And unfortunately, those are the ripples that we see happening. Those words that were posted, those were the rocks that hit the water. The ripples were all the people that were hurt by it and beyond and onward, but having no tolerance, despite how it could financially impact an organization, to have no tolerance for inequality.
Yeah. As you think about, you mentioned some leaders of organizations. Two questions: who's inspired you along your journey, and who are some other mentors that you look up to?
Wow, mentors. Duff Thompson has been a great mentor to me. Duff is not only a neighbor, but also somebody who has been phenomenal in giving of his time and energy in helping me with my business, pointing things out that are outside of my skill set. He has far more experience than I do, and he has given me great advice. People that I have looked up to are people like Nicole Tanner and Paul Shin, the people who are on the ground making the connections at those base levels. Not the people who are up at the top kind of overseeing everything, but the people who are on the ground, boots on the ground, running their companies, but doing real good in the world.
It's so true. And you think about those specific individuals and how approachable they are.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, there's this sense that it doesn't matter if you can do something for me or not.
Right.
I care about you.
Yeah.
And I see you. And that's important. I think as you think about that from not only a community and a connection standpoint, but man, wouldn't the world be in a different place if we said, just like you did, getting outside of your room, if you will, and walking out, tell me your story.
Yes.
What's important to you? What matters?
Right.
Because I think people will want to be heard.
Yeah. I look at Nate Randall with Gab
Nate's
Wireless.
Awesome.
And
so inspiring.
So inspiring. And even though I don't know him well personally, Nate is one of those connectors of connectors to total strangers. And as an example, early this year, there was a gal that Nate didn't know, had never met, but somebody had referred to him, and she was a young mother who had been diagnosed with cancer. And he went to his circle of influence and created a fundraiser for this young mom to help her get through her cancer journey. Through that, it connected me to her, which then in turn later connected me to Nicole Tanner in a roundabout way. And then we're able to collaborate and help each other. And there is no intrinsic benefit that comes to Nate through using his platform and his influence to help single moms find jobs or help raise money for people who are going through a hard time. That, to me, that is real servant leadership.
No question. So inspired by that good. But you just pointed out again something else that's so valuable about connection, right? And meeting someone without bias, but in a way showing up. How can I help? Right? Yes.
How can I help? And then truly helping. It's one thing to ask. It's one thing to offer. It's a totally different story to actually take action.
Yeah, that is so true. And, you know, as you think about some of these amazing mentors, what are some of the characteristics that you think they possess?
Power with, and I'll describe that. So there's 3 types of power. There's power over, there's power under, and there's power with. And these mentors are power with people. They aren't exacting their power over somebody, and neither do they have people who are minions, if you will. But these are people who are true collaborators. They're people who see the greater good, who understand that we are equals just by our humanity alone, and who are reaching outside of their influence to find other people who they can lift and support.
Incredible. And you mentioned, LinkedIn is such an amazing platform when used in that way.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
As a community.
Right.
Right? You don't show up at community and say, look how awesome I am.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But how can I help?
Yes.
And I think one of my favorite quotes ever is, if you want to be interesting, be interested, right? Be interested in others first and taking time for them. And I think about the reason we're here together is because of someone who cared, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the effect that's had not only on me, but also on our connection, be inspired by you. And the great that we can do, that ripple is so powerful. You know, things that we say mean a lot.
Right.
And it's also interesting just to consider what's happening with the words that will be recorded forever. What will people say about us? What would we want them to say about us? And back to your point, what's the legacy that we want to leave? And so as you think about this journey and this experience with not only those that have been closest to you, but as your kids reflect back and look and perhaps watch this someday, what would you want them to know?
I would want my kids to know that their mom genuinely cared about other people and was concerned about the direction that the world is going and the need for true connection, the need to take interest in others, to ask questions, to be outside of ourselves. And I would want my kids to know that that they are good enough no matter what, that it's not contingent upon the decisions that they make in school or what career they choose or who they partner with or what their successes are. But by merely existing, they're good enough and worthy of every good thing that could come their way.
Back to your point about I am.
I am.
So powerful. What brings you the greatest joy? What brings you the greatest joy right now? Right now,
seeing people do extraordinary things for other people. Seeing kindness for strangers happening brings me a lot of joy. Being able to help somebody brings me a tremendous amount of joy. Or to lift a burden. That right now, I had so many people lift me. So many people, unexpected graces and kindnesses to return those favors to other people. It's an exponential amount of gratitude, joy, and happiness to be able to do that in return.
And I think, isn't that one of the greatest ironies in life, right? The degree to which we think about ourselves.
Yeah.
The unhappier we are, right? These things that I may or may not have, or I'm not this, or I'm not good enough for that. But the instant we focus outward on someone else, I think, again, such an irony that not only are we happier, but we make someone else happy.
Yes.
And that is case in point with what you've just shared.
It is.
Not only through business, but all through personal challenges and experience.
I had an interesting experience. I read a poem by Gabral, who was asked the question about parenting. And in this poem, he talks about that as parents, we are shooting arrows, and those are our children. And that got me thinking about love, kindness, gifts. Any of these things are arrows. They're not boomerangs. And that when we put those out into the world, that we should have no expectation of what comes back in return. It is merely putting it out there. And if nothing comes back, that's okay. If something wonderful comes back, that's also great. But detaching from that expectation of if I do something nice for somebody, I expect something back, detaching from those expectations has brought me a lot of joy, because I no longer feel attached to, I did something nice, now what? Instead, it's, I got to do something, whether that is for my children, for my business, for friends, family, people I don't know, and that was enough. I don't even need to think about what comes back.
I love that.
And it's super freeing.
Yeah. And that is so inspiring, just to think about, you talked about one of your favorite words being empathy, right? And when we've been down a road like that, it's so interesting too. You think about, one of my friends said something really interesting. We both came to the conclusion that being a parent is best described as excruciating joy.
Yes, I agree.
And you think when people have been, like, for instance, you hear someone's child crying prior to having your own kids, like, really? Can you not, like,
get that
keep
under
your kid
control?
Quiet?
Yeah.
And now when I hear them, like, oh my gosh, can I help?
Yes.
What do you need? and it's just so interesting. The more experiences that we have that are similar, that make us human.
Yes.
That when we're in the lowest lows, or experiences where we've lost something.
Yeah.
And we know that someone else is there, and they're like, I know, I hear you, I see you. And we can do that today, right?
Right.
If anyone needs permission, do it today.
Right.
Because as you think about not only mentors in business, but also mentors through your life and some of the biggest challenges, who was there for you, and what were they sharing, and what were some of these ideas? Yeah. But you knew they cared above all. Yes.
I think, I wear glasses. I have had my prescription, my whole life has changed year after year. So I have a collection of glasses, Every one of those glasses served a purpose to help me see during that time. But as people, we evolve and we change, just like my eyes evolve and change with age. Giving grace to the fact that people evolve and change is good, and that we don't have to remain rigid in the way that we think, or critical if somebody decides to change their mind about something. Or like you or something that I disagree with. Instead, I don't know if they just got the worst news of their life. I don't know if that person flying down the road who cuts me off did that because they're headed to the hospital or a baby's being born. I don't know. So I don't need to take on that burden. It's not mine to own.
It's so awesome. What an incredible perspective to extend grace, right? We don't understand.
No.
And I really, really love Stephen Covey, and he shared so many things, but really seeking first to understand, then to be understood is something that would be an incredibly valuable lesson, I think, for us now. Krista, so much amazing content and so many great stories that you've shared. Is there anything else that you'd love to talk about and love to share?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Do you know what I think people really want to see is probably your cool glasses, though.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about those.
I
want
do.
To see the glasses.
Yeah, well, it's true. They're kind of my trademark thing, is my chunky glasses, which they're always dirty. So anybody who looks at my glasses probably wonders how I can see through them. I just see the world through these dirty fingerprint-covered glasses, and sometimes people offer to clean them for me, which tells me they're really dirty. If people are like, do you want me to wipe those off for you?
Oh, that's awesome. But just to show that we're all human.
Yes.
Right? And thank you for helping out.
Yeah.
And thank you for noticing.
Yeah, thanks for noticing. Caring. And then I put them back on. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, that was bad. That was bad. Now I see better.
Oh, that's so awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking time as we think about time and how important that is for you to come and have a conversation and share some of these deep, rich experiences, and so inspired by your goodness, by your generosity, by the great things that you're doing to make a difference and make an impact in someone's life. And I hope whoever is listening to this will know that you're going to be okay, that I am. Mm-hmm. I love that. Start there.
Yeah.
And reach out and help and lift others, because there's opportunities just like you have and you've experienced. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
for sharing this. Inspired and can't wait to see the amazing work that you do.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate you.
Hey, likewise.
Thanks so much for listening to the Lemonade Stand podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you use to be alerted when we release new episodes. We'd also love to hear your feedback in the reviews, and if you or someone you know has an awesome Lemonade Stand story, please reach out to us on social media and let us know. Thanks so much, and have a great day.